This is the Education Corner on the second and fourth Wednesday every month. And so what we do here is we have 4 separate programs on the second and fourth mornings. We have the 7 a.m. no-host breakfast down at the Bear Down Kitchen on the 4th floor. The 8 o'clock hour is this hour, the Education Corner. And the 9 o'clock hour is our general networking, our member spotlight, and then a mixer type of environment. And then every now and then, hopefully more often than not, we have a 4th hour at 10 o'clock. And today's 4th hour is going to be Evan Gray Davis, and he's going to talk a little bit after the Education Corner about what he plans to discuss during his 4th hour presentation. So today's Education Corner is going to focus on workshops. We are a big workshop proponent at Don Zavis Sales Consulting. And I personally, as John Waechter, am bigger than that. I believe in events, I believe in workshops, I believe it creates an awful lot of vitality and organization to you and your company, or you and your profession, depending on what's at stake. So we're going to talk today about why workshops work. Now there are different types of workshops, and I'm just going to keep my notes up on the board so that you can follow along. You know, you've got workshops that have lead generation. You know, so in other words, a networking workshop where you've got 40 people in the room that you don't know, and you can use that for lead gen. You've got educational lunch and learns, big proponent of it. We're thinking of starting a mastermind series here at the club, as well as maybe at a couple other places in town, where we would have a series of 6 lunch and learns that would basically extend over one lunch and learn a month for 6 months type of deal. You know, and that would be an extra cost for everybody, but it'd be a very valuable 60 to 90 minutes of stuff, and lunches included. So then you've got collaborative events, you know, all kinds of different ways that you can collaborate. If it's this business with this business doing a combo, you know, so you've got a realtor and a mortgage loan officer type of deal. You know, those types of events are very valuable because it can be kind of like a one-stop shop. And then you've got classroom style, which is just basically, you know, you rent a room and they're all sitting there, boom, 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 and you basically do that. You got mastermind sessions, like I just kind of alluded to, large conference engagements. So if you ever get invited to attend or to speak at, you know, in a ballroom environment where you've got 100 or 200 people, that's a workshop as well. And then what became really popular and still hold are Zoom webinars, where you can just really reach out to the entire world community, as opposed to your own backyard, who can physically drive over, park the car, and come in and see your workshop. So Zoom webinars are really became important as well. The first benefit of a workshop is it forces you to do the things that you know you should have been doing all along, but you just didn't do it. And so, but once you schedule that workshop, all of a sudden, boom, you got a hard stop. You got to get it done. You got to think through your business, think through your program. It eliminates, you know, doubt and worry, as my notes say, because you're in control now. You've decided that you're going to do this thing, and it's not just a dangling participle out there in the air. It's something that you've committed to, and it forces you to take care of your procrastination tendencies, you know, and that's really big, and I know that from personal experience. If I don't schedule something in my own calendar and say, this has got to get done by this time, then guess what? It won't get done. It just won't. We'll just find all kinds of ways to let this thing drift, and it'll drift, and it'll drift, and all of a sudden, before you know it, guess what? Nothing happens. So the second part of why workshops work is it forces you to create a process. It forces you to create structure. It forces you to stop the presses and think, okay, what do I have to do to get this done? What do I have to do? Do I need marketing materials? What kind of content do I need for the workshop? Is it a participatory workshop, an interactive workshop, or is it a classroom type of workshop? You know, it forces you to think through all these structural problems or structural issues, not necessarily problems, but that's what it does, and establishes a foundation for accountability. Because once you develop the structure and the timeline, we all know about SMART goals, right? Specific, you know, and relevant, achievable, all those little things. So it forces you to think about all of that stuff in that framework. And so, and it forces you to plan. You know, the old saying is, you know, you can plan to fail or fail to plan, you know, so one of those things are going to come true. So it forces you to plan, it forces you to stop the presses and think through structure, it forces you to hold yourself accountable, but the first part is all about making the decision to do it, just to do it, you know? So we have this workshop here every second and fourth Wednesday, you know, and sometime in the few days previous to that, I had to stop what I was doing and say, what are we going to talk about for this workshop today, October 25th at 8 a.m. I had to literally stop my world and think through what we're going to do. And why workshops work got the bid. So, and I know, Evan, we were talking about earlier, you've done workshops a fair amount and you believe in them wholeheartedly, and you're considering a whole new selection of workshops over time. And so, and you do it because, yeah. And or calling you back just to increase their learning, you know? Yeah. So, because in the video production world, you know, I mean, you are trending like bigger than big, you know, stuff that is, you know, it's just not digital anymore. It's just video. I mean, we can put up posts like this all we want, you know, but video is what drives. And so, but so many people are unfamiliar with that world, and your workshops will help them get acclimated to say, you know what, you know, I can get in front of a camera, you know, and you'll give them the tools to do that, I know, in your series. And also, I didn't go as far after accountability, but what's really important is you stop and think about best practices in your world. You know, what's the best thing I can do? And what are the things that I know happen in my industry that I'm not very proud of and not very excited about? I can establish accountability and best practices. And best practices are gonna, just like video trending, best practices are gonna be trending too, because people wanna be able to trust you. And they're going to trust you with understanding the best practices in whatever industry or whatever activity you're looking at. Yeah. Sure. If you have, in your case, for example, with healing with laughter, okay, there's things that other people do in your industry that you don't really take to, you know. So, but a lot of times we don't think about that. And, you know, we just try to ignore that it doesn't exist. And so best practices in your, you know, healing through laughter, in your spirituality, in your faith, and all that kind of stuff, there's things that you will absolutely do and things you absolutely won't, you know? And sometimes you just have to think about that, you know? And when you're trying to do a workshop and convey that, now all of a sudden you have to think, okay, what is the best practices in what I'm trying to get done? And what do I want to stay away from? You know, there is, you know, and it's all about creating trust. You know, being a subject matter expert, which we'll get to, but conveying trust so that people understand that your best practices are the best practices, period. Yeah, good question. Anything else? Okay. Number 3. Workshops like this one, especially because we're recording, it can result in, there's 3 types of learners in the world: visual, audio, and kinesthetic. So visual is, how do you look? You know, and if you want somebody to look at you, you've got to give them something to look at. And a lot of times that's going to be as a presenter in a workshop or as a creator of a workshop. There's also audio. So visual learners are about 55% of the population. It's probably trending in that regard, but the evolution of podcasts are starting to dampen that a little bit, because people listen to podcasts now. There's millions of podcasts out there all the time. And so the podcast world and the audio learning, auditory learning, is usually about 35%, you know. And then now you've got the kinesthetic, you know. So how do I look? How do I sound? How do I feel? And those are the 3 things we learn through. We learn through vision, we learn through hearing, and we learn through feelings. And that's the kinesthetic. That is statistically a little lower on the scale in terms of its popularity, but we all do all 3. It's just a matter of what's your primary. For most people, the primary is video, or is, you know, visual, you know. But for others, it's auditory, and for the kinesthetic, it's the touchy-feely, you know. Give me your product. I want the product in my hand, and that's why bricks and mortars like Best Buy and all that kind of stuff, you know, you want to go and you want to see that, you want to pick it up, you want to see the back of it and see where all the ports are to make sure, you know. So to some of us, we just want that confidence in ourselves that we know what we're buying or what we're trying to convey. And so keep in mind, when you're doing a workshop, you're going to have all those different types of learning folks. And everybody's going to have a primary, and everybody's going to have a secondary, and everybody's going to have a tertiary. So, yeah, Dennis. It's a very good point, especially because now, if you don't like it, you just return it, and they give you a return label to it. So, you know, that's a good point. And what his point was basically, has internet shopping and internet, knowledge and exposure changed the kinesthetic? And it probably has. I don't know of any specific statistics on that in terms of its effect, but it's your point's naturally taken that, you know, kinesthetic, yeah. Yes, exactly right. If reporting to a younger group, probably going to be more video, you know. Keep in mind, with every year that goes by, the technology increases, but it's an inverse relationship to our attention span. Our attention span is decreasing every year. It used to be like 20 seconds. Then it went to 10. Then it went to 7. And now if you don't catch a person within 3 or 4 or 5 seconds, you know, that email gets deleted. That, you know, Larry. Right. Right. Yeah. In sports talk radio, they call those hot takes. You got to have hot takes to get clicks. Yep. You know, and so you just got to, you know, and how many times a minute, I don't care what channel you're watching, how many times a minute do they say breaking news? Probably 4 or 5 times a minute, it's breaking news. Weather change. That's right. Oh, but Weather Underground is a little different. So anyway, when you're doing a workshop, when you're trying to do your own workshop, the point is make sure that there are 3 types of learners in your audience. But the primary is going to be visual, typically, statistically. But depending on your subject matter, maybe not. You know, if you're trying to demonstrate a new widget, then kinesthetic may be where to focus, you know. Or if you're trying to sell, you know, a new CD, you know, as an artist, you created an album or a recording, you know, maybe your first thing out the door should be something in the auditory, you know, a sample of my artistic talent, that type of stuff. Just depends on what you're trying to get done and what your objective of the workshop is, and making sure that, you know, you've got all those bases covered at some point in time. You want workshops, you know, and this is not necessarily a workshop like today, but a workshop that has now become very popular, like over Zoom or Teams or any of the other softwares. What social media has created is a redefinition of communities. Before, when we wanted to sell, we had to go out and sell in our geographic world. Now, that might be our town, that might be our state, that might be our country, but it was geographically done. Now, you've got generational communities. Like now you have workshops that appeal to 20 to 25-year-olds all over the world. They're generational. They're age-driven, not geography-driven, you know. Or you can appeal to millennials or some of those other categories that we've created because of the internet and social media. So we can now redefine our own target market, our own community that we want to focus on through age or through generational stuff. You know, the stuff that I want to sell to my niece will absolutely not appeal to my niece's daughter, you know, who's like 10, 12, 15. And the niece is 44. kind of a deal. So we do have these generational communities now that are more accessible than ever. You know, in the old days, JCPenney had a kids section, they had a men's section, they had a women's section, they had all these various, and come spring of the year, they had a swimwear end cap, you know, and now it's just, you know, that's all available now 24/7, 365. Professional communities, now because of the internet and social media, we can reach out to lawyers only. We can reach out to astrologers only. We can reach out to, you know, restoration people, roofing people. I mean, we've got all this different ways that we can we can slice up that pie, but we also have common interest type of stuff, which is a little different than the professional, but you know, we have common interests that I want to market myself to faith-based people, you know, people that believe in, you know, whatever God you want, whether you be a Christian, a Jew, a Muslim. I mean, we can target all of those people. So the definition of community has definitely changed, and it's changed a lot. And we can orient our workshops, especially over the internet. We can orient those workshops accordingly. And so, as opposed to a bricks and mortar workshop like we're having right now. Number 5. And I kind of alluded this earlier, but if you want people to look at you, you got to give them something to watch. If you want people to listen to you, you got to give them something to hear. And so the objective of the workshop is to get one or both of those objectives done. What are you trying to get out of your workshop? You know, it forces you to think about value. Workshops are the type of deal that in most cases you can provide value beyond the entrance fee. And sometimes your entrance fee is going to be 0. Sometimes it's going to be just come to my financial world, and I'm going to give you a free dinner at Hacienda del Sol. You just have to listen to my spiel an hour later, you know, and just, you know, sign in, get your email on time, you know, opt into my drip marketing world, and boom, before you know it, after the course of a year, you've probably got, you know, several hundred people in your drip marketing campaign that you didn't have before. Now, is that worth a dinner? Is that worth a lunch? You got to decide that. But you can if you want to develop that type of marketing strategy, that's a separate workshop. You know, that's a workshop that forces you to think. You're like, why would they come? Why? What can I do in my workshop to appeal to that particular target market? You know, am I going to give them? How am I going to define value to them? How am I going to give them something that they walk out with something they didn't have before, especially in the category of a deliverable? You know, how can they walk out feeling, you know what, that workshop was excellent, and we need to talk more about the subject matter, whether it be insurance, whether it be real estate, whether it be astrology, whether it be, you know, roofing, or whether it be commercial versus residential issues, that type of stuff. HOA issues. Jim. Yeah, we do. You know, now I'm not going to be Warren Buffett at the end of the workshop, but you know, but yeah, there's ways that we can start putting that we can start monetizing the value of your workshop. Yeah. Um, I wouldn't. Okay, he said, is there a type of workshop that you get a better response to? You know, uh, that's kind of like asking, you know, what kind of advertising works, you know, and the old adage, well, 50 does and 50 doesn't, and you just don't know which one, you know. But it all depends on how you define value. So if your takeaway, the bottom line here is what's going to be their takeaway. So if that's more of a visual, if that's more of an educational thing, then you want to focus on education, you know. So for a lot of people, for example, solar is more about education. We all know solar, but we all don't, you know, but we don't know exactly enough to take that leap and break the ties with TEP and go into some sort of solar, you know. So that's an educational type of workshop. This is how, and that would be a step by step. This is how it works. We do this, we do this, we do this, we pay this, we lease that, and your electric bill goes down as a result, and it goes down permanently as a result. That's more of an education as opposed to the kinesthetic, touchy-feely stuff, because you can't really touch the sun. You know, so it just depends on your industry. It depends on what you're trying to accomplish, and we're going to say that a lot. Is the effectiveness of a workshop is going to depend upon your objective. Randy. True. Sometimes, though, right. So that's exactly what will be their takeaway. That's where you have to focus on. And you know, when you have a workshop, you're going to get all kinds of people. So you're not going to be able to always assess everyone's value system and value takeaway. But you can afterwards. You can do things like surveys. You can do, you can have like a general mixer afterwards, you know. And one of the things that a lot of people do is they stay afterwards as a workshop presenter, and you start to get questions, and you start to see what the audience is valuing from you. And workshops are not one and done, and they're fluid. So if you're not getting the value takeaway, then you've got to restructure your content. You know, maybe in your case, you got to have more humor, you know, as opposed to, you know, just talking the techniques of a comic, you know, kind of a deal. Just kind of groping here to help answer that question. But sometimes you're just going to have to keep tweaking, because workshops are not one and done. Workshops are something that you got to put in your marketing plan. Workshops are something that you got to establish a consistency with, and to make sure that, you know, you can come to the education corner at 8 a.m. every second and fourth Wednesday, and you don't have to even think or reserve or anything. You just show up, and you know it's going to be here, except if it's like a holiday or something like that. So consistency is very important, and that will help you identify the value that people get from what you're saying or what you're trying to do over time. But the one and done, no, it won't. You know, you just gotta. It's just like, you know, a comic has jokes that fail, right? Create no laughs. You know, well, you know, regardless. But what do they do? What do they do? They tweak their routine. You know, they say, "Oh, that didn't work. You know, let's throw in something that does work." Okay, let's move on. We're starting to run a little out of time, and I'm only halfway. So if you record workshops like we're doing right now, and this is right up your alley, Evan, you know, video can be broken down into shorts, and we do that. You know, Simona does that for us for Don Zavis Sales Training. Audio can be used as a podcast, and transcription can be used to publish articles. And now with all the new technology and AI and all that kind of stuff, this is for people that know how to do this. This is easier than ever. It's very, very easy, which is why I would have to pay somebody like Evan to do that for me, because that's above my pay grade, and I don't need to go there mentally. I know where I am and where I have to be. Number 7, workshops bring you to the space of being a subject matter expert. So if you're conducting workshops, it doesn't always matter whether or not you agree or disagree with what's being said. But typically a workshop presenter that has done their homework walks out with a certain panache, a certain vision as an expert, so that when you do a workshop and you come into a problem that you remember was talked about at that workshop, you will call that person back and say, you know what, I saw you 3 months ago at this hotel, and you talked about this, and now that's really, really important to me all of a sudden. Can we have a coffee, or can we have a lunch? So becoming a subject matter expert is really, really, really important, So we've got a couple of photographers in the room, for example, good photographers. They're subject matter experts in photography, So we know who we need to talk to if we need headshots, or we need wedding pictures, or we need whatever. It may not be something that we need today or tomorrow, this month, next month, but guess what? Because we went to that workshop, now we know who we need to call, because you're the subject matter expert. Workshops, this is more the collaborative workshops, but it helps create networking and strategic partners. Now, networking partners are just that. You refer, I refer. There's no transactional basis. If I need a roof, I'll call him. If he needs sales training or workforce analytics for his company, he'll call me. And we just take it from there. Strategic partners is when you share the wealth. Strategic partners is, regardless who I send to the roofing guy, I share to some degree in that financial mechanism, and vice versa. Whoever he comes to me, I got a company there who's got high turnover, and they're spending like crazy on onboarding, and their training sucks, and then so if I get a financial transaction from that, Dennis here would benefit from that. Those are your strategic partners. Networking partners are going to be the partners that you're going to see here in another half hour. Just meet, greet, learn more, make a referral, but always make sure that, we always talk about referrals or a tennis match. You hit the ball over the net to your opponent, he or she hits it back. And so you got to make sure that your networking groups are all about trust, that people will repay you in the same form that you gave them. And once you analyze the situation over the course of time, and you see that these referrals are only one directional, they're unidirectional, and you're not getting referrals back, well then, that's when we quit. We just stop that, and we find a new roofer that will play ball with us. That makes sense. Workshops provide public relation opportunities. organically, you know, you guys, some of you may actually go out into your business world, go back to your offices and say, I just attended an OK workshop, and if you need this, that, and the other in sales training or Salesforce development or workforce analytics, things like that, then when you do a workshop, it will organically spread. It will organically spread. Now, how fast it organically spreads is really is a function of the value of the workshop that you provide, the takeaways that we said a little bit earlier. So you can always, and that's why we have the goodie bags. The goodie bags, we put out 40 every time, and the goodie bags is a place to bring 40 handouts, 40 pens, or 40 business cards, or 40 of something, fill up the goodie bags, put them in yourself, take one when you leave, and all of a sudden you have everybody that's in attendance that wants you to know them. If you don't bring anything and put it in the goodie bag, you're probably not going to get much in the way of significant retribution when it comes to phone calls or leads or anything like that. Plus, when you fill up the goodie bags and then you take one, now you've got everybody that wanted to be seen, heard, or listened to in the group. And so that's one of the things that that we really feel is important, because that's part of the organic world. It's just, and John's filling up the goodie bags right now. And so, and finally, when you do a workshop, you actually have a few minutes with a captive audience, which is really, really important. You've got, typically they will sign in, or you'll have a registration tab on your website or something like that, and you'll get them, and you can convert those people to your marketing campaigns and your drip marketing, because not everybody is going to be transactional today. In fact, probably nobody's going to be transactional today. But, when their roof leaks in monsoon season, they'll know who to call, and so it's just going to be more of a, more of a consistent deal. Hey Larry, how you doing? So in short, we're going to wrap up here. Workshops forces you to do the things that you don't normally want to do, creates a process that develops structure, results in natural audio and visual content, connects you with your community, as well as it provides value, and that's very important, especially in certain types of it, providing value and knowledge, and it makes you, it gives you a different edge. It gives you an edge over your competition. Makes you, it populates your social media, makes you a subject matter expert. It's a form of networking. And so just like this room, we'll get up and network here before we get started with the 9 o'clock program. And so you'll learn more, you'll talk more, and it's just a form of basically coming together. It provides public relations opportunities, and you've got a captive audience. So that in and of itself is really what workshops are all about and why they work. And I guarantee you, they do work. If you have workshops on a consistent basis, you'll get more clients over time than without the workshops. I fully believe that, and that's why we do workshops all the time, and we're always creating new workshops. So, any final questions? Normally we do learning verification, but we're kind of out of time. I got a little long-winded, and so we'll just ended it there. We're going to reconvene for the 9 o'clock hour in probably about 15 minutes or so. Let some more people get into the building that are the 9 o'clock attendees only. And other than that, Education Corner is adjourned.
Thank you, John.